Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So we're right in the middle of voluntary OTAs, a really important time for not only just a young football team, but a young coaching staff as well. And Robert Saleh just wrapped up a press conference. So in this one, I really wanted to just recap it, kind of touch on a few points that he was talking about, right? Because there was a lot of bases covered within the press conference. It wasn't too long, but it was interesting nonetheless. So anyway, let's dive in. So we got some exact details on why some of these players, some key players, right, some really awesome players are missing in action. Makai Beckton probably being the biggest name out of them all. He's currently dealing with a foot issue, plantar fasciitis to be exact. And look, obviously it's not fun. I mean, I've actually known a couple of people that have had this, and it's not something that you can ignore. It's not something that you can just sweep under the rug on a day-to-day basis. It's painful. It's definitely a hindrance. So the good news is it doesn't require surgery. It's not like Makai Beckton's going to be missing extended periods of time, much like a Quinnen Williams, where it's weeks and weeks and weeks of time missed. According to Robert Saleh, he just needs to kick his feet up and relax, just stay off of his feet. You don't need to practice. This is voluntary OTAs. Of course, we want you out there, but at the end of the day, this is way more important. So, I mean, he's a core piece on this offensive line. He's a core piece of the entire football team, one of the faces of the team. So we have to make sure. And he was dealing with some injuries last season as well. Plus, like, he was being put back into the game, and that whole Adam Gase thing, just a complete nightmare from top to bottom. So we have to make sure Makai Beckton's health is at the top of the list and that he is 110% ready to go for the season. Now, Corey Davis is another guy that's missed some time due to injury, and he's expected to come in and be the team's #1 wide receiver, signing a pretty big 3-year deal, and he got hurt early in voluntary OTAs, went up for a jump ball, landed on his shoulder the wrong way, and has missed some time. But I will say this, the silver lining, again, much like Makai Beckton, it doesn't require surgery. He's not going to be missing, a month of practices, or it's not like he's not going to be ready for training camp. And actually, Robert Saleh specifically said, hey, if this was game week, Corey Davis would be out there playing. But because it's so early in the process, we're still in early June, voluntary OTAs, it is what it is. Just get healthy, get back on track, and do your thing. Now, Jamison Crowder's another guy who is not out there. He's missing time, but it's not because of an injury. It's more so a financial decision. And as we all know, Jamison Crowder has been probably the best offensive piece we've had on this team for the last couple of seasons. And even going back to Washington, this guy was a really productive player, always seems to find his way to the football, always seems to come down with catches, always seems to contribute, right? I love Jamison Crowder, great player. He's owed $10 million, but that $10 million is not guaranteed. And Robert Saleh actually mentioned something pretty interesting. He said that Crowder is working on some contract stuff with Joe Douglas. What does that mean? I don't really know. I mean, could it be a potential pay cut? Who knows? I mean, we drafted Elijah Moore in the second round. We have some awesome outside wide receivers as well, like Denzel Mims. Keelan Cole can kind of play some inside. Corey Davis, like we talked about before. This is a football team that, for the first time in a long time, has some pass catchers. So I don't really know what that means. And then, like, as the reporters were trying to get more out of him, it was just like, hey, these are questions kind of more so for Joe Douglas, not really me. So kind of an interesting situation there. I don't really know what to make of it for sure. But I will say this, Robert Saleh did go on to say that he pretty much loves Jamison Crowder, that he does have a role with the offense, and that he absolutely envisions Crowder being with the team this upcoming season. So it's not like there's some weird ill will, bad blood, almost like a divorce in the near future. I don't really see any sort of situation like that, but I also understand it from Crowder's perspective. Like, if I'm owed $10 million and it's not guaranteed, I can understand Crowder's financial decision on this one, especially because it's voluntary OTAs. At the end of the day, you don't have to be there. If this was training camp, if this was preseason, if this was, mandatory minicamp, and he's just holding out, he's skipping it, I would kind of have an issue with it. But it's voluntary OTAs, so early in the process, not that big of a deal, to me personally. Now, Morgan Moses was brought up as well, and this was something that came out pretty recently, right? Only a couple days ago did news break that the Jets met with Morgan Moses, but in actuality, the meeting happened a week ago. So my hat goes off to Joe Douglas from keeping everything under wraps. That's, you always love to see that. You don't want information like leaking and spilling out all over the place where, other teams know what you're doing. And Saleh's response was, hey, he's a great player, and we're not going to, as an organization, try to avoid signing good players players. We're not avoiding trying to add talent to this football team. And it truly sounds like, again, for the first time in a long time, the GM, Joe Douglas, and the head coach, Robert Saleh, are working hand in hand. It's not like front office versus coach, versus the coaching staff. It's not like Robert Saleh is, against everybody, or it's the owner and the coach against the GM. And we've actually seen this a lot, right? In just recent Jets history, like Rex Ryan and John Idzik did not get along. And like Rex Ryan has been open about it. Like he didn't like working with John Idzik. Think back to, a couple seasons ago, Adam Gase gets brought in by Mike Maccagnan, and then Adam Gase supposedly gets Mike Maccagnan fired. What kind of organization does that? Who lets that happen? Like, that makes no sense. So it's awesome when you have everybody in the same room working on one specific goal. Everybody kind of, they might not agree all the time, but they work together and they're all on the same boat. So that is always a plus. And then the last point I wanted to touch on was the defensive scheme. Jeff Ulbrich was brought up, and Robert Saleh kind of went into detail about what it was like working with Jeff Ulbrich and really why he got brought on to the New York Jets staff. And number one, he was an ex-player, and he can relate to players and stuff like that. And he's just he's an easy guy to get along with, understands the game. Similar system, right, being ran over in Atlanta under Dan Quinn that, also came from Seattle. And Saleh had a really interesting comment that stood out to me personally. I just really like the way it was worded regarding how the Jets defense was going to look this upcoming season. He pretty much said that the Jets defense is going to resemble a marriage between the San Francisco 49ers defense and the Atlanta Falcons defense, because both defenses last season shared the same scheme and philosophy. So as we all know, Ulbrich's coming over from Atlanta. Again, really likable guy. Players like playing for Ulbrich, experience in this system. He brings new ideas to the table. I'm just really excited to see the direction that this team travels down throughout the course of the rest of the offseason, right? Through voluntary OTAs, through mandatory minicamp, training camp, all that good stuff. So much to look forward to. And that was pretty much the main takeaways that I took away from the press conference. There was, of course, some other stuff about, Zach Wilson, but just a lot of coach speak, right? To be honest, just, hey, he's going to have his ups and downs. Talked a little bit about his arm strength, touch on the football, all that kind of stuff. But nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that really caught my attention. All run-of-the-mill kind of, just what you'd expect. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, go Jets.